Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Cursed Kitty event, in which the Stone Panther is added to the game. So this week we have a few things going on. Chalcedony is in the event key drop table if you want to go get that. It's one of those loop troops like we had last week for red, except this one is brown for constructs instead of red for dragons. We have a Vault event this weekend, so that's going to be nice. Great time to go stock up. We also got the new event calendar, which I do want to cover its own short little video on, but I do want to briefly go over it, as we have the whole event calendar for September, and this seems like something they're going to be posting every single month. The first one they ever posted was for August last month, and it seems like it's going to be a reoccurring thing, and it kind of gives us a look at the events that are going to be right around the corner, including like the Vault event this weekend and a new Mythic this weekend. But anyways, let's start with the troop itself. So this troop brings the kingdom to 14 star. Of course, Hellcrag does not have that many troops. Most recently, it got the Catharix guy in the 7.0 patch, and this is the first one that they've gotten since then. As far as what it does, not much. It ends up dealing some damage to an enemy, boosted by Brown allies at a 3x boost ratio, and then creates some good Gargoyle gems. Biggest issue with this kingdom as a whole is they create Gargoyle gems. Good ones give you positive effects, negative ones give the enemy negative effects. Though, of course, similar to any other power gem, if you don't take them, the enemy can. So, it could just give the enemy good positive effects in this case, or the bad ones can give you bad negative effects if the enemy takes either or. So overall, it's a pretty average mechanic. Things that just do random status effects tend to be better. Doing it with alpha Gargoyle gems, this is a really high risk for barely any benefit at all, and there's not enough good boost ratio alpha Gargoyle gems to really justify building an entire team around it. So unfortunately, it's a pretty dead mechanic. Hopefully we'll get something that can kind of put it together, kind of like how Wand of Stars made Elemental Stars, or yeah, Wand of Stars, whatever it's called. That one wand that covers every color basically made Elemental Stars usable. I'm hoping we get some kind of mechanic like that into the future that makes Gargoyle gems useful, because as it currently stands, they're pretty much unusable, I would say, for the most part. But this kingdom is pretty good for having a bunch of constructs, if nothing else. Has 50% reduction, as most of them do, and apparently has 2 times damage to dragons, which won't really do much, and overall is pretty much just another troop to end up bringing this to 14 stars. As of Catharix and him, it is now 14 starable. Does that really do much? Not really. But it gives you a little bit extra tribute chance to reward, all those kind of things. So a little bit more progress on the hourly tribute, if nothing else. But overall, this pretty much his only purpose. As far as the event queue drop table, we're talking about it, and it's mixed as far as if it's worth or not worth. I would say the main thing you would want to go for 100% if you don't currently have it is Chalcedony. Pretty sure most people have this laying around, but if you don't, it is so absurdly good. It's basically the only troop in this kingdom. Not exactly, but pretty much. There's only a few really usable ones in this entire kingdom, and Chalcedony is one of them. We had a very similar troop last week, basically for red, but this one is for brown constructs, where it boosts ratios based on how many are on the team, and can end up creating up to 15, or if it ever became shiny, 16. It currently does not have a shiny variant. The red one is the only one that has one currently. This could change in the future. I could see all of these having it, since the next 3 likely will. And that would make the past 3, including Chalcedony, not have shininess. So at some point, they'll probably give it to her. But as it currently stands, she cannot be shiny, so don't try opening keys to try to get it, as she cannot. Or don't open them in general. It's a pretty bad week in general to open them. But anyways, as far as the event key drop table is concerned, the things that are not in drop table include Catharix. You have to go craft them in Soulforge for 8 power orbs. It's been around for since 7.0, about a month now, so if you haven't gotten him, definitely make sure to do so at some point. It's pretty good. Definitely gets Zolgoth first, but he's definitely like the second thing you'd use your power orbs for. The tower. Tower is in Vault keys, not in event keys. And the other ones are the 4 troops from the Obsidian Depth. So all 4 of those are not in drop table. So those 6. Everything else that you see here is in drop table. And the only 2 particularly noteworthy ones in that regard are, as I mentioned, Chalcedony, and the other one is actually Zenith. Zenith, he has an interesting mechanic, and probably one of the only few that can really use Gargoyle gems effectively. It creates 5 Doom Skulls, which is not that many. However, it's boosted by Evil Gargoyle gems. So if you have even 3 Evil Gargoyle gems on the board, you're creating 14 Doom Skulls. That's a lot of Doom Skulls. Not to mention, he gets to create evil ones every single extra turn, so you don't even necessarily need an option on your team that creates them. He himself basically supplies it, all that he'll need for the most part. You could still set one other one to offset it a little bit if you wanted to, but he can provide all the Evil Gargoyle gems you need to basically keep this ability going over and over again. And of course, since they're Doom Skulls, you do mana accumulate off of it. Not as much as you would from, other things, but you'd still be exploding most of the board. And while most of that board would be skulls, some of it would still be mana, so you'd get a good majority of your mana back. So overall, he's pretty decent. Compared to other skull spammers, he's a bit more inconsistent, but definitely pretty strong. So those are like the only 2 things in this entire kingdom. Unfortunately, well, and Catharix, but he's not a drop table. So unfortunately, not much value in event keys. You would mostly just want to go until you have these 2, and once you do, you can pretty much just stop. Unless you're lucky to get this kingdom upgraded by getting the mythics or anything else. But otherwise, it's a pretty underwhelming kingdom. with its most useful thing definitely being Chalcedony and Catharinix. But Catharinix, of course, being, if we go to Soulforge, if we go over to troops all the way here, Catharix, you can just craft him all the time. You don't have to do it this week. You can do it any week. He's always on Soulforge, so you can just get him whenever. Anyways, next order of business, we have ourselves a world event. So as I mentioned earlier, and it is confirmed now, this is the first world event that has started when the 7.0 patch has been fully initiated. And it is 100% confirmed, which we pretty much already knew based on the patch notes, but it does not get the new shiny key system. So, of course, most other events got 4 extra reward tiers, where you get an extra major orb, as well as, shiny keys, the pet orb, all that kind of stuff. This mode did not get that. This is an upside in that you won't have to get as many points, but of course the downside in that we'll be getting 4-fold less reward tier of loot every single time we have a world event now. Of course, you still get all the tokens that you get across the way and, all the standard loot that you would normally get from a mode like this. However, we are unfortunately missing out on that aspect, so not ideal. As far as the shop is concerned, there's nothing like particularly special here. You would normally just buy up to tier 2, tier 3 or so, and if your whole guild does that, you'll have the event done. You don't need to buy any deeper than you normally would on some of the other events, as, you don't need as many points, since there's no extra 4 reward tiers compared to the other one, so overall, should be a pretty chill week for that, if nothing else. If your guild normally doesn't get all the reward tiers, should be a little bit easier this week. And one other thing to mention, I do want to mention the calendar thingy real quick. While I do want to cover a video more in-depthly going over this, one thing that is pretty noteworthy is that we actually do get the Journey event every 5 weeks now. So we can see like a world event. So we basically have a 5-week cycle now that will bring Tower of Doom from 11-week period into a 5-week period, which is very similar to its once 4-week period that it was scaled based on. And I think it once had a 6-week period. I don't remember. Well, right now it is 5 weeks per Tower of Doom. It is also 5 weeks for all of these. So world events, invasion, Tower of Doom, raids, and journeys. But the 2 most relevant ones here are Tower of Doom and journeys. Tower of Doom going from once every 11 to once every 5, and Journey going from once a year, maybe, to once every 5 weeks, which is huge because this is where we get a lot of deeds now. So we'll be able to get constant deeds. And of course, as mentioned earlier, we have a Vault event, and looks like even Vault event might be on like this 4 or 5 week cycle, because look at this, you can't quite see it, it's very faded here. But that does say Vault event in 4 weeks from now. So not only do we have one this weekend, we have one in 4 weeks, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's the last day of September, which means we actually have 2 Vault events this month, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, in other news, let's go over now to the other things we have going out throughout the week. Well, I guess I could just do that off the calendar. That's one of the reasons I even went here. So it's kind of faded here for some reason. But of course, this Tuesday we have Obsidian Depths. Wednesday we have the Construct Pet. Thursday we have Geomancer Hero Class, which honestly isn't too bad. It's 50% mana start to all constructs. Basically required to be used with Chalcedony, ideally. This Friday we have 2 things going on. Vault event and a new Mythic. So we'll be getting a new Mythic. Unfortunately, that new Mythic's pretty underwhelming, unless it gets rebounds between now and then. It's not horrible, but it's probably not going to be used. It seems like it's basically weaker for Phoenicia, but it has a single target for finishing off units. It's really weird how it's scaled, but it does have a lot of spell reduction. It has like 80% spell reduction, so but you could be stunned, so what's the point? You just get it stunned and it has no spell reduction, so it's in a weird position, but we do get a new Mythic. It's under the category pretty much useless tank Mythic, but at least it does damage instead of just only tanking, so not as useless as some of those other ones, I guess. And yeah, good old Vault event, so great time to go grind. I actually finished up all my Vault keys the other weekend. Main reason I consumed them all was we had the Diamantina with 20% extra stats, so we're able to get like 4 wins per minute rather than like 3-ish or so per minute, so end up speeding up a little bit. Anyways, aside from that, let's go over to Soulforge. So Soulforge does not have much going on this week. As far as troops, pretty much nothing as far as the ones that are only available this week. Though, given that it is associated to this kingdom, you can go for Catharix, so you can do that any week. However, he's pretty much the only thing in this category really worth going for at the moment, since he does have synergy with some of the events and stuff going on right now. Aside from that, we do have ourselves one weapon that you might consider. Overall, most of the weapons from this location are pretty bad. However, you might find some use in using Watchful Blade, particularly for the Underspire event that we have going on. Deals some damage to an enemy boosted by Hellcrag allies, and then creates a mix of red and brown gems. So if you happen to be restricted pretty heavily into that, you can end up doing that. For the most part, you're probably not going to need this or any of the weapons available, but if you're going to craft any of them, it's probably the one to end up getting. Aside from that, I actually forgot to cover it last week, but Hellcrag Trials, we did end up getting a little bit of a rework here. Basically, long story short, is spam Chalcedony until you win. It's pretty much the entire plan. I guess we could reorder this a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, just put that guy up front, keeps clicking Chalcedony until you win. This guy can just exist. Yeah, it seems like you just click Chalcedony until you win. I don't think you need to do anything other than that. Just keep clicking that button until the entire enemy team is dead. And that is all you have to do. That is the entire battle. And you can use this guy as a meat shield because of 50% score reduction. He also has an alternative mana accumulation. This guy you never cast unless you really want a barrier. And this guy just does some extra damage, but because he does an extra turn like Chalcedony, you might as well keep spamming this until you win. So yeah, keep clicking Chalcedony, that's all you have to do. Very straightforward trials this week. And you can pretty much order in any position you want, just make sure Chalcedony is safe. And you'll be good to go. Ideally, your whole team's safe, because as you lose troops, she gets less gem spawn. But 50% reduction should be enough to keep it alive, plus you have the extra barrier thing if you really want to utilize that. Anyways, aside from that, other things. So, Festival of Feathers, of course, is concluded, the event that we've had the last 2 weeks. However, if you still haven't spent any of your points, you cannot earn any more points this week. But if you forgot to spend them, you still can. Main rewards, of course, being 1 owl armor. At this point, if you didn't get Grim Feather, you might as well just skip it until it comes around. 6 copies of the pet, 5 to get it max, and then 1 to get the golden one. And then if you have some spares, you can go into the orb. But at this point, you could just skip over Grim Feather if you haven't used your points yet and still have the points to buy something, as you'll be able to get this in about 6 weeks or so, so not too big a deal to have it now if you haven't already gotten it. Anyways, aside from that, Soulforge, we mentioned over that. Okay, let's go over some teams. So there's not too many teams to go over. We don't have that many events going on. Mostly just Vault event, as far as like super relevant things this week. And a new Mythic this Friday, of course. So pretty much everything this week's happening on Friday. But as far as World Event is... Oh, did I even mention World Event? Gosh, I'm going over the place. So World Event, just very briefly, it's rarity order. You have spell increase. So we have extra spell damage this week, and it's based on rarity order. As far as your restriction, it is Generator, Strikers, and Brown. So you have a lot of good mana accumulators, and there's some okay damage sources under Strikers. What we're doing with this initial team right here is using Wand in order to curse and or bless. We could use it for mana accumulation or curse them so we could devour if there are any. I haven't seen any in these battles, but there might be some, so I end up going with this blade. You could switch it out for a damage source if you really wanted to, if there isn't really any immune to devour. However, the main premise of this team is we're going all in on Piskia, devouring everything, using Sacrox for extra mana accumulation. Not only does it use the excess brown, but it also ends up using the excess blue that you would end up getting for Piskia's ability, and we're basically RNGing it down to get Piskia to devour. If you really want to, you could even go and try for Piskia in first slot. However, we only have extra spell damage, not skull damage, so while he will gain extra attack, it does not get amplified like spell damage will. Though this team doesn't really particularly use the spell damage aspect, we're mostly just trying to devour everything. So that's pretty much the game plan there. The other one does end up utilizing the spell reduction though, or the spell increase. So for this one, we are spamming, guess who? Chalcedony. You might be seeing a lot of her this week. She's really good for almost every mode that's currently available, and she has 20% stats this week. So yeah, very viable. You can pretty much use it for anything. If you are using her, make sure to do what Geomancer has 50% mana start to constructs, and of course she is a construct. Not only for that, but also you need your whole team to ideally be constructs in order to give her her max amount of 15 browns. Otherwise she'll do 12 if you only have 3, which is still fine. We use it for one of the other teams, but of course 12 has a bit of a lower chance of extra turning compared to 15. And you can double up on her to make sure if you do happen to miss, you will have another Chalcedony ready to go. And that's pretty much the whole game plan. Oh yeah, and we use the new Jeweled Golem guy. If you got him shiny, he'll be 12 mana cost instead of 13, but still visual glitch that they'll probably fix next time by next patch. It still shows 13 there, but he actually does have a 12 if you got him shiny. If you basically whatever event was going on that week, if you went up to the point where you get the 5 guarantee shiny tokens, he would have his 1 lower mana cost. And even if you don't, 13 mana cost is still perfectly fine for him. Next, we have ourselves Underspire. Underspire is specifically just a restriction to Hellcrag. So as far as Hellcrag, one of your best options you have is Catharix, obviously, if you have access to him. We're basically just using Chalcedony and Mana Accumulate for it. I'm only going one of them so she could still get her 12 ratio rather than going all the way to 15. You could simply build into a 15 ratio team, which is what the low rarity one does. We literally just build into 3 Chalcedonies using an Obsidian Labrum as a backup plan. You could go some kind of damage source, but there aren't too many in the kingdom, as it is restricted to specifically the kingdom itself unless you use that one glitch that allows you to use any weapon. But assuming you're not, you're basically just Chalcedony spamming until you win, and just using Geomancer for the 50% mana start. Like pretty much every mode this week, just spam Chalcedony until you win. Not the quickest way to win, but it is definitely consistent, that is for sure. Anyways, next up we have ourselves a pretty standard Guards Avatar team. The restriction is brown-purple. Of course, if you want to, you can keep spamming Chalcedony teams as well. She fits into brown-purple teams too. So you can end up doing like a Joel Golem into like your hero and 2 Chalcedonies, you know, basically like the team we already built earlier. However, I figured we show some different things here. And by different, I mean the Guards Avatar team we always mention, just because he's so good for it. He's basically the Rowan of factions. In that he just covers damage so well. And of course, standard Thrall Leprechaun setup. We have access to purple, so just do damage source, Thrall, damage source, Leprechaun. Whatever you replace out Hiking Arrogant and Zolgoth with is up to you if you don't have those. But basically, you're just looking to do the most amount of damage you possibly can, and this is one of the ways to do it, while using Thrall Leprechaun as your main mana accumulation base. For the Putrefaction, you can go 4 Obsidiaraxes. Oh, I did go 1 Dark Golem here. The main reason is he has a few Explodes. That might not seem that useful, however, you create a lot of Gargoyle Gems. He ends up having a 30% chance to create an Evil Gargoyle Gem when his turn begins. With 3 of them, that is almost 1 every single turn, though it could be 2, could be 3, could be 0. But, you know, on average, you're going to be creating almost 1 every single turn. And because of that, you are going to constantly keep making the board more and more cluttered. And the main way to get rid of that is just to explode it, cash in on your Gargoyle Gems, and make sure that the enemy doesn't. Though, if you really want to, you can just spam 4 of him and just keep spamming his AoE until you win. But this is mostly just to be able to trigger your own Gargoyle Gems. And he has 50% score reduction, so he gets to tank a little bit better than just gaining a little bit extra life. So he's going to be a lot more survivable and hopefully survive until the final fight. Anyways, lastly, we have ourselves Geomancer, and guess what we're using? Spam Chalcedony. You could go with that one thing that gives you, like, Brown Link, but I figured we'd just spam Chalcedony and go down that route. Honestly, you could even go 4 Chalcedony. Well, actually, you'd still want to go 3 because you need the 50% mana star off of Hero. But, yeah, we're just using Black Manacle. You can even set it back some if you want to get the mana accumulation in there, which, honestly, now that I think about it, well, it depends. Earlier fights, you would want to do this. Later fights, you would want to do this. It depends how deep you're going. Because for the super early fights, 1 Black Manacle wins. But when you need 2 Black Manacles, this would actually be slightly quicker, so you can just adjust it when you need. Once you get to the point where Black Manacle stops one-shotting, which is generally by the 3rd set of battles. And by the 3rd set of battles, I mean, like, after you've done 10 battles. You know, it goes every 5 as a set. So once you reach that point, you get into doing that. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. So overall, this week can be summed up in Vault Event on Friday and New Mythic on Friday. It's a pretty uneventful week throughout the rest of it, but at least we have a lot of things to go do this Friday. Most notably, grind Vault Event for a ton of loot. Vault Events, of course, being the best time ever to end up getting pretty much any loot within the game. You get a bunch of Vault Keys, you get a bunch of Glory, you get a bunch of Souls, and a bunch of other knick-knack resources that are really good for just progressing throughout the game. And you gain so much compared to what you normally get that you could easily farm more during a Vault Event than all the time between a Vault Event as far as overall loot. So definitely a good idea. Potentially go for like 100, few hundred, several hundred Vault Keys, and then open them all after the fact. It's not worth opening them during because they have the same drop table. So farm your Vault Keys and Verses during it, use them all, and then afterwards you can open all your Vault Keys. Anyways, that's pretty much a rundown. If you guys still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams we just went over are in the description if you want to go and copy paste any of them. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.